All right, so today we are learning about literal equations, and that's just really talking about rearranging equations. So if I'm looking at these, for each of them, we're asked to solve for a specific variable, so it's going to be different every time. What that means, what it says solve, is just let's try and get that variable by itself. So if I'm looking at 15, it says to solve for pi. So I'm trying to get this pi by itself. Now, hopefully we know what's going on in between the 2 pi and the r is multiplication, okay? So in order to try and get the variable pi by itself, what we're gonna do is we're gonna divide to get rid of each of these terms. So if I divide by 2, I'm left with pi r on the right side of the equation, and I have c over 2 on the left. Again, since there's multiplication going on, I'm going to do the opposite of that, which is divide by r on both sides. Okay, if that kind of confused you, let's go back for a second. So when I'm dividing by r over here, okay, they're going to cancel out. If I divide by r, what I'm going to have is, there we go, c over 2 divided by r, right? I'm going to try to divide by r on both of the sides of the equation. If I divide by r, what that is going to be the first fraction divided by r over 1 will turn into multiplied by 1 over r. So what is that? That's just c over 2r. Okay, and that's what I have. That's what I'm left with. I'm left with pi equals c over 2r. That is my answer. Okay, you could have just divided in the beginning. You know, if our original problem was c equals 2 pi r, you could have just divided from the beginning 2r on both sides, right? That might be a little easier, right? Cancels out all over here, and you're just left with pi, and then on the left side, you're left with c over 2r. Okay, for number 16, I have trying to solve for p. I'm trying to get the p by itself. And again, what's happening is there's multiplication going on in between each of these terms. So I'm going to try and do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. Now, when we're dividing by a fraction, though, dividing by 1/2 is just like multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, it'd be 2 over 1, or just 2. And that makes sense, because if you're saying, okay, like if you had 6 divided by 2, what is that? That's 6 times 1/2, right? If you do 6 divided by 2, you get 3. If you take 1/2 of 6, you get 3. So dividing by a number is just like multiplying by its reciprocal, all right? So if I'm dividing by 1/2 on both sides of this equation up here, it would be like multiplying by 2 on both sides. So we get 2a equals ap. And then again, my goal is to get the p by itself. So I'm going to divide by a on both sides. And I'm left with 2a over a equals p. Now, if you're looking and saying to yourself, well, I have an a up top and I have an a on the bottom. You do, except they're actually different, because one's capital, one's lowercase. I know that sounds a little weird, but that does happen when you get into either chem or any kind of physics. Capital and lowercase letters are actually different when you're dealing with mathematical equations. So this is actually your answer. All right, for the next one, I'm trying to get the b by itself. So what you're going to do is, instead of order of operations, okay, when you're solving, you actually do the opposite of PEMDAS. So simplify, wow, I spelled that wrong. So simplifying, you go, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, but solving, you're actually going the opposite way. So I'm saying, is there anything I can add and subtract first, and then multiply and divide, and then get rid of the exponents, and then get rid of the parentheses? So what that means is, for this problem, you actually have the a plus b on the top of the fraction, which means I'm going to multiply by c on both sides first. And if I do that, I get a plus b equals 5c. Now I'm going to subtract a on both sides, because what am I trying to solve for? I'm trying to solve for b. Get the b by itself. I'm left with 5c minus a. That is my answer. All right, now I'm going to get the x by itself, right? So again, opposite of PEMDAS, I'm going to look if I can add and subtract anywhere to get the x more by itself. And yes, I can. So I get 3x equals 24 plus 3y divided by 3. And I'm left with x equals 24 over 3 plus 3y over 3. Okay, and this is not actually our answer because we can simplify. 24 divided by 3 would give me 8. 3 divided by 3 would give me 1, so I'd be left with 1y. That is my answer. All right, last one. We're going to get the v by itself. And again, we're going to try to go the opposite way in PEMDAS. So is there anything I can add and subtract here? I know you're probably thinking yes, but you're actually in the parentheses, so no. Move on to multiplication division. Yeah, I can multiply by 2 on both sides to get rid of this 1/2, right? Multiply by 2 on both sides, I get 14w equals w plus v. Okay, now there's no exponents. We're going to move on and get rid of the parentheses by subtracting w on both sides. Now 14w minus a 1w would give me 13w, and I'd be left with my answer.